My golden child siblings got $370,000 from our parents, I got nothing, paid for my own small wedding, and finally snapped at family dinner. I'm a 27-year-old guy and the third kid out of 4. I've always felt like I'm kind of the forgotten one in my family. My siblings, Lori, 33, Chuck, 29, and Jade, 25, always seem to get the best of everything from our folks and from each other. Me? I'm lucky if I get the leftovers. It's been like a decade since any of them bothered with a birthday gift for me, but I'm still expected to chip in on group gifts for each of them every year. So, Friday night rolls around, and we're at this family dinner. And let me tell you, it was like every other sentence was either a jab at me or my siblings bragging about stuff they got from our parents that I never did. They were all chatting about how awesome their weddings were, then casually mentioned it was okay that my wife and I had a small, low-key wedding because we liked it. But nobody mentioned that our parents paid for all their weddings except mine. Apparently, they couldn't afford it because they were saving up for Jade's wedding. Then, they start talking about student loans and how little they owe thanks to the parents' help. All of them got to live on campus at fancy 4-year schools while I stayed home and went to this super elite watchmaking school. I got paid to attend, so I chipped in for rent at home. My folks did buy my tools, which I appreciate, but they dropped $120K $150K on each of my siblings and only $7,000 on me. To them, that's somehow equal. When I later went back to school on my own dime, I didn't ask for help, and none was offered. But when my brother went back to school, they covered everything, no questions asked. There were tons of other little digs about cars and other choices I made. But what really pushed me over the edge was when Chuck and his wife started raving about their last Friday night date. That's the same night my parents canceled plans with my wife and me last minute to babysit for Chuck. Turns out the emergency was them going out to eat at Texas Roadhouse. I'd spent hours making my grandpa's ZT and meatballs with homemade marinara because it's my mom's favorite. I was so mad I wanted to yell, but instead, I just got up and left with my wife. Later, when my mom called asking why I bailed, I laid it all out for her, the favoritism, the unfairness, how it seems like they don't care about me at all. She got quiet and didn't have much to say. I wasn't looking for an apology or an explanation right then, but if she really didn't get it, I wanted to make it clear. Apparently, she told my siblings about our chat because now Chuck and Lori are pissed, saying I wrecked dinner, and my mom's upset that I'm hurt. They think I'm immature for keeping score, but come on, my siblings are the ones keeping score to diss me every time they see me. My mom's only upset now because I finally called them all out on it. Keeping score might not be the best solution, but I think it's better than just letting it slide. Some people suggested writing everything down just like I did here and sending it to the whole family in a group chat, then ghosting them. Honestly, I'm not sure I'm ready to totally cut ties, but loving them from a distance sounds kinda appealing. Oh, and no, we don't all look alike, Jade's adopted. But she does feel terrible about the wedding situation. She didn't know about my parents not paying for ours until 6 months after hers. She thought they'd helped us out with our house or something because that's what they'd always said they'd do. But nope, I fully footed the bill for my own wedding. So, my parents never really stuck to this long-time deal they had, where they said they had money saved up for each of us. We could use it for a wedding or whatever we wanted as a wedding gift when we got hitched. But honestly, it's not Jade's fault. She never asked for any of this stuff, and she didn't even plan her own wedding. My mom and Lori took over and made it all fancy because that's what they wanted. Jade and her hubby usually hang with me and my wife whenever they're in town, and that's been our thing for ages. The family keeps showering her with things she didn't ask for, probably trying to make up for her rough childhood, and sometimes it feels like it's at my cost. But since she was a kid, like 6, she'd always share stuff with me. Jade and I are cool. It's not her job to make sure the grown-ups are being fair. Commenter, have you ever just laid all this out for your family like you told us, or have you just been keeping this to yourself? It's cool that your sis Jade gets where you're coming from. So, I finally had a real chat with my mom on a Friday night call, where I laid out more than just one incident. It was the most thorough I've ever been because, for once, I didn't get cut off. We were on the phone for like an hour and a half, and I did most of the talking. Commenter, you seem really emotionally strong. Sometimes people just can't resist bugging you when they know they can't get to you. It's more about them than you. But here's a thought, if these folks weren't family, would you even hang out with them? You totally have the choice of who gets to be in your life. So, rock that boat and sail your own. OP, I definitely still hang out with Jade and her husband, and I spend time with my grandparents too. My dad's mom probably sees me more than anyone else in the immediate family, and my pop, mom's dad, has always hung out with me more than the other grandkids. I have autism, and he probably would have been diagnosed too if he'd been born today. We both need breaks from big crowds and have similar sensory issues, so we've always bailed on family gatherings to play board games together. Update 1. I wasn't sure where to put all this, so I'm dropping it here. My first draft had some of this info, but I had to cut it down to fit the character limit. Some of this has been mentioned in other comments, but I'm just pulling it all together here to hopefully answer questions. There's no reason to think I'm not my dad's kid. The list of crazy genetic coincidences that would have to happen is too long and pointless to go over. He doesn't have any male relatives who might explain it either. He has one sibling, my aunt, and none of his cousins have ever been around. I look a lot like my paternal granddad, who passed away when my dad was young, but he was supposedly a good dad and is remembered fondly. My younger sister got a lot of stuff from my parents that I didn't, but she didn't ask for any of it and has always tried to make things right. She's not seen everything, but for what she has seen, she's tried to fix it. She might be too trusting sometimes and doesn't ask enough questions, but she's not heartless, and getting mad at her isn't going to solve anything. We talked a lot after I posted this. She thought she was giving money toward my birthday gifts every year since at least 2018. She'd give money to my older sister to buy my wife and me tickets to soccer games. She figured when we posted about going to games, one of those was the gift she chipped in for. There's more backstory, but the main thing is Jade and I get along great, and she doesn't join in on any negative stuff against me. She and her husband hang out with my wife and me often, just the four of us. My maternal granddad definitely favored me as a kid, but it's not like I got extra presents or anything. We just have really similar personalities, and that was clear early on. I'm on the spectrum, and I strongly believe he might have been as well. We both really struggle with sensory overload, like loud crowds or gatherings with his boisterous Italian family. It can totally overwhelm us both. So here's the deal, both of us always end up sneaking away during family gatherings for a bit. Over time, we started hanging out together, escaping to play some games or just chilling in the kitchen and cooking. It's kind of our thing now. As we've gotten older, he's mentioned noticing that I don't always get the same treatment as my siblings. Lately, like over the last couple of years, he's been giving me more stuff, things he thinks I should enjoy now or that he wants me to have when he's no longer around. That stirred things up last Friday. You see, he's got a decent amount of money, and my older siblings are convinced I'm just in it for a bigger slice of the inheritance pie. I honestly have no clue about his plans. I've never asked and never will, it's none of my business. He's always been the type to keep things fair and square. Every Christmas, everyone gets the same number of gifts with almost exactly the same amount spent on each person. So, I don't expect him to do anything different with his estate. I figure anything left will either go to charity or be split evenly among us. But where my siblings see dollar signs in his extensive record collection, I just see a beautiful array of music that I would never sell. They also think I'm hoarding the antique watches he gave me. They aren't exactly worth a fortune, except in sentiment. The most valuable one is an old Timex Marlin that ticks every 60 seconds. They'd rather I sell them and split the cash. But honestly? That would be downright rude. Pop gave them to me because he knows I'll fix them up and wear them. They're also ticked that he gave me his first nice car. Sure, it's got some value, but it's not exactly a top-tier vehicle anymore, not rare, not really a collectible. I see it as a sentimental treasure. It was his go-to Sunday car for a while, and I've put a lot of love into keeping it running. My siblings argue that I'm actually the favorite, suggesting that their financial gifts from our parents pale in comparison to what they think I've received from our grandfather. But honestly, that's blown way out of proportion. Then there's my grandma, she's been showing me more love as I've grown older. Financially, there's nothing to inherit from her, and I'd never ask. She's got this old clock that I adored as a kid, and she's pointed out since I was super young that it's meant to be mine one day. But I'm not angling for it. I just enjoy her company. She's hilarious and loves going on walks with my wife and me, plus our dogs. She even stays at our place over the holidays instead of the guest house my parents built for her. My siblings think she's supporting me financially, but unless there's something I don't know, that's just not true. My wife and I plan to have a chat with my parents soon. I don't know what they'll say, but we're making notes to prepare. I'm not exactly sure what I'm hoping for from the discussion, but I definitely think family therapy should be on the table. Update time. So, about a week after I posted, my wife and I sat down with my parents to clear things up. Like a lot of people suggested, I wrote down my thoughts and made a list of all the stuff my siblings got over the years compared to what I received. After doing all the math, I figured out that while I was away at university, I actually paid more in rent to my parents than they ever spent on my tools. The total difference came out to something between a $370,000 gain on one end to a negative $190,000 on the other end in terms of how much more my parents gave to them compared to me. Seeing the numbers laid out like that was probably the angriest I got in this whole thing. My parents knew there were differences, but they really pushed back on how much. So, we finally sat down and went over every big gift situation one by one. By the time we were done, my dad admitted that my guess about their financial situation was probably on the low side. That was pretty much the end of our productive chat that night. He just said they didn't think things had gotten that bad but didn't give any hints about how they could have missed it. Meanwhile, Chuck and Lori kept ramping up their anger, calling and texting me, my parents, and the whole extended family. I haven't talked to either of them directly since then, and I don't plan to anytime soon. About a week later, my parents asked to meet again. We talked a lot, but basically, they thought I was doing fine and didn't need their help. They admitted they lived beyond their means and gave more to my older siblings than they should have. They said that during my wedding, they were at their worst financially, especially since they were paying for Jade's tuition, car, and apartment. They've offered to pay for stuff like vacations and a car, but I think they still don't quite get it. My wife and I don't want their money, but we're still figuring out what making things right looks like. At least they admit they were unfair and seem open to working things out. For Easter, my wife and I hung out with Jade, her husband, and my grandparents. My parents dropped by in the evening, and that's pretty much the new normal for now. Some people commented, guessing my parents might ask for money when they're older. Honestly, that's partly why I don't want to accept any gifts from them right now. If nothing changes between now and when they retire, I wouldn't feel guilty about letting them fend for themselves financially. Jade and her husband would probably step up to help out, though. But if I let my parents pay off my mortgage, I know they'd try to use that to guilt me into helping them later. I don't wish anything bad for my parents, I just wouldn't be the one to help them out financially. They spend recklessly now and probably will in the future. I'm sure they'll run out of money a few years into retirement if they don't change their ways. I know Chuck and his family won't feel like they can help, even if they could financially. And Lori, unless things change, is upset enough with them that she might not help, especially if she thinks there won't be anything to inherit. Oh, about Jade and the birthday gifts, there's a whole thing there. Long story short, she and her husband had been giving Lori money, thinking she was buying us tickets to see the Union play as a birthday gift. Turns out, Lori was just keeping the money. I love Jade and her husband, but they're kind of naive about money because they grew up wealthy. They just thought the tickets cost way more than they actually do. Every year, Lori would hit me up for cash to buy my own birthday present, and I just went along with it. These days, Jade and her husband aren't on speaking terms with my siblings. They were genuinely shocked when they found out I hadn't been getting gifts from the family. Fun fact, Jade and her husband once took my wife and me to a game this spring, covered all the expenses, and didn't think of it as payback or anything. They just wanted to do something nice. Now, I'm not saying Jade's perfect or anything. You can definitely tell she's been a bit spoiled, but she really tries not to act entitled. She and her husband are doing well financially and are super generous. Sure, she got some help along the way, but it's unfair to blame her for that. She's never flaunted it in front of me. Unlike Chuck and Lori, she's embarrassed about how one-sided things have been. Meanwhile, Chuck and Lori are upset that the special treatment isn't continuing. Someone commented asking if my parents know that Lori's been taking from Jade. And yeah, they know. They've still got a relationship with her and Chuck because, grandkids. I don't want or expect my parents to cut them off. That's their call. On my end, things with my parents are kind of distant and I prefer to focus on that. I don't really have any bond with my older siblings, and I doubt that'll change unless they have a major change of heart. If they genuinely want to fix things, they know where to find me. I don't want money from my parents because if they give it to me, they'll think we're all good, ignoring how differently I was treated. Until they show that they're serious about making things right beyond just handing out cash, I'm not interested. My wife and I work hard and make decent money. We're not as well off as the rest of the family, except for Jade and her husband, but we're comfortable and have savings. I've reduced contact with my parents, and honestly, I'm okay with it. If they want to take a hard look at their actions and make amends, I'm open to it. But first, they need to recognize the non-monetary favoritism too. My grandparents are already well aware of how things are skewed. I'm not too worried about getting even, because I've been told I'll come out better off anyway. I've come to terms with the fact that any relationship with my brother or sister is pretty much beyond repair. Letting my parents try to fix things by throwing money at the problem won't lead to them taking real responsibility for their actions. Anyway, if you're still here, thanks for sticking around, And don't forget to subscribe for more wild stories like this one.